The modern world isn't built on magic. It runs on cables, servers, logistics, code, and the invisible systems we depend on every day. This channel explores the infrastructure beneath the interface. I'm Wet and Sea. Using Notebook LM, curated sources, and my own technical direction, I break down complex systems into something understandable without stripping away the reality behind them. No. If you want to see what really keeps the machine running, welcome aboard. Let's explore.
Picture a street in modern China. It's buzzing, right? Neon signs, the smell of coffee. It could really be anywhere in the world. But what if I told you that hidden behind all that, in plain sight, is a single, quiet house that was the engine room for a revolution? Let's dig into a story that literally shaped a nation's destiny. So, our story starts in Guangzhou, this sprawling metropolis in southern China. And like so many cities here, it's just this incredible, almost dizzying mix of the super old and the hyper modern. I mean, just look at this alley. You've got signs for burgers, a coffee hub, cool posters. It all feels pretty familiar, doesn't it? This is the face of consumer China today. It's vibrant, it's global, a place built around hanging out and shopping. But here's the wild part. What if I told you that just a few feet from where this photo was taken, plans were being made that would shake the entire world? That this very street was once the front line of a radical ideological war? It really makes you wonder, right? Well, the answer is right here. Because tucked away, almost swallowed up by all the modern shops, is a building where the course of the 20th century was fundamentally changed. So this is it. This unassuming building, which is now a museum, was once the home of a man named young Paoan. From the outside, it doesn't look like much, but this was a nerve center for the early Chinese Communist Party. That red star above the door, that's really the only clue to the explosive history that's locked inside. So who was this guy, Yang Paoan? Well, he was a major thinker, an educator, and a revolutionary organizer. In the early 1920s, he basically turned his own house into a secret headquarters, a place for meetings where the actual foundations of modern China were being debated and drawn up. You see, before you get to the strikes and the marches, you have to start with ideas. And back in early 20th century China, new ideas were spreading like wildfire. They became the #1 weapon for a generation that was dead set on building a completely new nation. This museum display, it's called Southern Wind Enlightenment, and that name says it all. It tells you that this part of China was just a hotbed for new thinking. Intellectuals like Yang Paoan were soaking up and spreading these radical new philosophies. They were driven by this core belief that to change China, you had to change how people thought. Education wasn't just about books, it was a tool for liberation. In this quote, it just perfectly captures their whole strategy. It was this deeply held belief that real, lasting change doesn't start with force. It starts with ideas. The pamphlets, the secret articles, the late-night study groups in houses just like this one, those were the real weapons being forged. They were laying the intellectual groundwork for the huge social upheaval that was just around the corner. Okay, so how do you get from theory to action? How did the ideas that were whispered in that house spill out onto the streets and into the factories? Well, this timeline shows you just how fast everything escalated. From their home base in Guangzhou, organizers put together this temporary, and let's be honest, very fragile alliance. You had the nationalists, the Kuomintang, on one side, and the brand new Communist Party on the other. This united front was all about teaming up against common enemies, and it just set the stage for some explosive political action. You can see the key players here in these old photos from the museum. This house was a hub for non-stop meetings, for strategy sessions, for really tense negotiations. It was right here that they planned how to get students, factory workers, and farmers all on the same page, uniting them against foreign influence in the local warlords. And the amazing thing is, it actually worked. The organizing that started in those quiet rooms led to one of the biggest labor strikes in world history, the Canton-Hong Kong strike. For more than a year, hundreds of thousands of workers just walked off the job. They brought the entire economic heart of southern China to a dead stop. It was just a stunning show of collective power. So all of that brings us back to today. We've seen the intellectual fire, the organizational power that all came out of this one little house. But what does that legacy even mean now, 100 years later, as we're looking at the China of the very near future? Look at this. This is a founding document from China's official trade union, born right out of that revolutionary fire. And it's filled with ideas that were absolutely radical for the time. Workers' rights, class struggle, social justice. These aren't just words on an old piece of paper. They are the ideals that people fought and died for on these very streets. And here, the story just comes full circle. On the left, you've got the strikers from 1925, all unified for political cause. And on the right, that exact same street today, a marketplace of global capitalism. I mean, the contrast is just jarring. The very site of a massive anti-capitalist movement is now home to boutique cafes and burger joints. And that, right there, is the central tension. As China charges ahead as this global economic giant, what happens to its revolutionary past? Is it just a museum piece, a story you see behind glass? Or do those ideals of collective action and social justice, forged in that little house a century ago, still have an echo in the country's future? Honestly, that's the fundamental question China itself is grappling with every single day.